From the Asgard Company Studios in beautiful Wichita Falls, Texas, from the finest mind in the modern fitness industry, the one true voice in the strength and conditioning profession, the most important podcast on the internet. Ladies and gentlemen, starting Strength Radio. Welcome back to Starting Strength Radio. We're glad to have you with us again on the podcast, and we're also very, very happy that Dr. Mike Wittmer has decided to join us today. Dr. Wittmer runs a clinic in St. Louis, and over the past couple of weeks, it has come to our attention that the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Administration, has decided to revisit their rules on telemedicine. Now, this is a terribly important subject. The DEA does not operate under what you would call statutes. They do not issue statutes. They are not the Congress. They do not pass laws. They merely issue regulations, which are, for all intents and purposes, laws. They're not elected. No one has given them any of the power to do this, but over the past 40 or 50 years, this bureaucracy has grown to the point where an agency like that is essentially operating any way they want to. And this revisitation of the telemedicine regulations poses some interesting questions for testosterone replacement therapy. And we're going to talk to Mike about that today. Mike, thank you again for being with us.
My pleasure.
So, tell us exactly what the hell is going on here.
Well, that's a big ask. I can tell you what I think.
All right.
I don't know. You want me to go towards the beginning of where all this started with this regulation?
Sure do.
This really came on after the 1988 Olympics when a Canadian beat United States track and field athlete named Carl Lewis.
That's when Ben Johnson ratted everybody out on the presence of anabolic steroids in sports, which had been going on for 30 years prior to that. And they've been talking about testing for it before then, but that really got everybody's attention, I think. Oh, I remember that very clearly. If you remember the way the news media treated that, the assumption by the news media was that anybody who was taking anabolic steroids could beat Carl Lewis in 100 meters. Yeah. Anyone. All you had to do was take Dianabol, and you could beat Carl Lewis. And everybody just swallowed that. It's amazing.
Do you remember in weightlifting the Bulgarians?
Oh, yeah. Blagojevich and all those guys on that team in the 88 Olympics.
They pulled out halfway through because all their lighter weight guys got positive for a diuretic.
Yeah.
And prior to that, they used diuretics to mask anabolic steroids in the urine test.
Right.
And they didn't know that the diuretics were being tested.
Right.
And if you were taking those, it would disqualify you. So in the middle of the Olympics, I think it was after the middleweights or maybe the lightweights even, they just went home. So none of their heavier lifting didn't compete because they knew what was going to happen.
Well, they were taking Lasix to dilute the urine to the point where they had to make weight. You know, that was the time-honored role of Lasix in sports, is to make weights in weight class sports. And I do remember that. That was an interesting The Bulgarian coach goes, hang on, wait, they're testing for Lasix too? Oh,
yeah.
Shit. Oh, shit. We just screwed this up real bad. We got to get out of here. So they just withdrew. Yeah.
Well, our Congress got involved following that, of course.
It's just too delicious to leave it alone.
They were going to eliminate cheating with anabolic steroids and get it out of the sport and out of the schools. And the idea was to make anabolic steroids a controlled substance with harsher penalties for using it and selling it, making it more difficult to get. And that way they could do something good for the children. And that's what happened.
Oh, yes. Anabolic steroids treated the same way they treated opiate and analgesics. Dianabol is a Schedule III drug, when under no circumstances should it have been a Schedule III drug. It doesn't do anything even remotely similar to any of the other Schedule III drugs. Yet, politics, as usual, trumped intelligence and the truth. The truth is a scarce commodity these days, and yeah, it started back then, didn't it?
Yep, and interestingly enough, at that time, the DEA, the FDA, the AMA, National Institute for Drug Abuse, all had representatives involved, and they all said, don't make anabolic steroids scheduled controlled substances. But Congress went ahead and did it anyway.
Yeah.
Well, they're after votes.
Yes.
So this is something that might look good back home.
The wonderful Senator John McCain was right in the middle of that, wasn't he? I remember that pompous asshole sitting on that committee where they dragged Barry Bonds in front of him and just whipped him like a mule over this shit. It was just amazing. That was not associated with the Olympics thing, but Joe
Biden was a major sponsor of that bill at that time, too. I know.
Oh, that's shocking. Who would have thought that would be the case? I wonder if Bo has ever taken steroids.
I don't know.
I don't know either.
Well, you know what happens with supply and demand and market principles. Anabolic steroids became a huge black market, and it just exploded.
Yeah,
the black market.
No one knew anything about it until all of the news media spent a solid month at 5:30 every evening on the news telling every 14-year-old kid in the United States that all you have to do is take anabolic steroids and you too can beat Carl Lewis in athletics. Now, what do you think that did? This is, so anyway, they created this entire situation by doing that very thing, didn't they?
Yep. And then, of course, later on, it didn't help. You may have heard of the Ryan Hyatt Act. That was, I believe, around 2008. An 18-year-old was able to get some prescription Vicodin from a doctor online, and he ended up overdosing. And that's when they established this Ryan Hyatt Act, which was focusing on the abuse of painkillers and opioids and trying to keep those, out of the hands of patients that might do something and harm themselves. Mm-hmm. There is also a high school football player in Texas, no less. You guys take football pretty seriously down there, don't you?
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah. He, of course, wanted to put on some body weight for his senior year and get his bench press over 300 pounds, and he started taking anabolic steroids and did very well. The problem was when he stopped using them, things kind of crashed, and that'd be hard to handle as a teenager. Nobody wants to get weaker and lose muscle. And he had some real problems and wound up committing suicide.
Right.
And his parents got involved, and
of course they had no culpability at all in this. No. It was just the anabolic. Right.
Well, I think you always look to blame something when something bad happens, and
Sure
it's tough. And they blame the steroids for him killing himself.
Right.
But nonetheless, it got us to where we are now with the Controlled Substance Act that we have that involves our testosterone and other anabolic steroids.
Well, let's stop right there just a second. Let's explain the difference, because there's a profound difference between testosterone, whether it is the cypionate salt, propionate, enanthate, any of those salts of testosterone, and what is technically referred to as an anabolic steroid. They're different things. Explain that for us.
Yeah. When you and I talk about anabolic steroids, we think of Dianabol and Winstrol and Anavar, and Mestrolone, and Tremble. I mean, there's dozens of them.
Right.
Those are synthetic derivatives of testosterone. The molecules aren't a whole lot different, but they're different.
They're different in that they can be taken orally, whereas testosterone cannot be taken orally.
Correct. And that's one of the differences.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, testosterone is an anabolic steroid, but it's a natural hormone that we produce within our own bodies. We are actually supposed to have it. And I think part of the problem with the way testosterone is looked at by mainstream medicine, if you will, is we know that the synthetic anabolic steroids have some downsides. They can be hard on your liver, your kidneys, your lipids. They can raise your cholesterol, lower your HDL cholesterol. So therefore, anabolic steroids are not healthy. Testosterone, being an anabolic steroid, is guilty by association.
Right.
And they throw testosterone in the same bucket, when in fact the opposite is true.
Yes. I had a thing I printed out here someplace. It's laying around on the floor someplace. The DEA is actively conflating testosterone supplementation, TRT, with the use of anabolic steroids. I have two pieces of paper in here that describe anabolic steroids. And in the same breath, with the same very broad brush, testosterone is thrown into the mix. And they're not the same thing. But because the Congress called them the same thing, even though that is not the truth, then the DEA proceeds from the assumption that what they can do is invest on top of the horrible associations with, Lyle Alzado and everybody else that anabolic steroids have, and paint TRT with that same broad brush. And that's exactly what they're doing.
So we've got this Ryan Haight Act, which, thanks to the public health emergency in 2020 due to COVID, was suspended. And there were some exceptions to the act that allowed for just that. And they opened up telemedicine and included controlled substances in it, whereas before they had not been included. That was a limited time exemption. The thinking that I had when this was beginning was that this will be permanent. The telemedicine had been going on anyway at a lower level, but it was very successful. Patients liked it, doctors liked it. It was very convenient, and it was working. And I thought, well, if it's okay to let this be a legal thing during a health emergency, why wouldn't it be okay just to have it, period?
Right.
And
I mean, think of the wonderful things it does for the environment.
Yeah.
Keep people from driving to the doctor. Right? If I've got to drive to St. Louis to see you, what's my carbon footprint in a situation like that? We need to keep that in mind. That might come in handy at some point.
Well, I'm old school. I like the office visit. I'd much rather be sitting across from the table with you in Wichita Falls than doing this. But, in talking to patients over the last few years, I ask them, even local people do telemedicine.
Right.
Yeah, they don't want to drive across town if they don't have to. They have to park in a parking lot, walk into a building, go up an elevator and all that. I've had guys do it while they were driving. I'm not sure that's a good idea. I've had semi truckers driving with their phone on the dash doing the consult. Again, I don't think I'd recommend that, but
what is the downside? Because this is the critical question here, isn't it? What is the downside of telemedicine? Is there one?
I don't know what it would be. I just don't. Well, especially with what we do, which is based on labs and symptoms, which we can communicate that even on a phone call. We don't have to do a Zoom call. But no, it's been working very well. So now with this exemption expiring, the DEA is looking at going back to what they had before. And with probably some changes. Right now, I am really not that concerned that it'll be that horrible for us, if at all. There are other, psychiatry, addiction medicine, pain management, they're going to be affected by this more than we probably would. There's a lot of people involved. The American Hospital Association, over 500 hospitals, they're against disallowing telemedicine. Kaiser, probably the largest HMO in the country, they're against disallowing it. They like it. Of course, for them, it's probably more cost effective for their utilization of their doctor's time.
Yeah, it saves them money. There's no doubt.
Yes. So we've been looking at advance, trying to get ahead of this as much as we can. And I think it's just so unpredictable that we're just going to have to wait and see. There's been a lot on the internet. There have been a record number of contacts with the DEA. My son actually got a call from our congressman today. I think getting the Congress involved would probably be the best thing we could do. The DEA is going to do what Congress tells them to do. It's like the IRS will make a law that they don't really understand. Well, not the IRS, Congress will make a law that's very clear, and they just give it to the IRS and let them figure it out.
Let them interpret it. In fact.
Yes. Yeah, and DEA is going to interpret the laws, but the Congress ultimately has a lot of control over this. And nothing's been finalized yet. They're just looking at options, and we'll just have to see how it plays out. I think a possibility is that testosterone will be unscheduled or at least downgraded from where it is now.
Right.
And ironically, I don't know if you know this, because we didn't get to talk beforehand, the trans women are not very happy with testosterone.
I'm sure that's true. They've
is.
Got more political clout than we do. I mean, anything they say goes right now.
Yes. They want easy access to testosterone. Two senators I think a guy named Harker, I'm not sure, I think maybe Massachusetts, and Elizabeth Warren have written letters to Joe Biden requesting that they unschedule testosterone.
Are you serious? Elizabeth Warren did something useful? This is extremely difficult to believe.
Wouldn't it be ironic if testosterone was easier for men to get because women wanted it?
Because Elizabeth Warren wanted it.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
But if they could separate testosterone from opioids, that's really the thing.
They should never have been in the same sentence anyway, obviously. But if this is what it takes to reschedule testosterone, then fine, let's do that. So, what is the state of the law right now? Is the telemedicine was permitted back in 2020 as a way to cope with the pandemic and to keep people from having to go to the doctor's office to be seen by a physician, and as a way to get prescriptions over the phone so the deadly pandemic wouldn't be transmitted from one person to another in the doctor's office, right? So was there a statute passed that permitted that? And does that statute sunset? Is that what the situation is right now?
Yes, that's what's happened is the exemption is expiring. And that's where we are today.
When does it expire?
I don't know the date. I think maybe May 15th. I'm not sure.
Later this year. Right.
It's going to be later. There'll be a 6-month extension for whatever they're going to wind up doing. So let's say they just flat out say testosterone is illegal. You can't ever use it again. That's not going to happen. But you'd have a 6-month extension for patients to figure out something else. And we're pretty confident that we'll find a way that we can continue. It may involve different things. Maybe you'll have to be seen once in person, but that would be it. We've had that before COVID. Guys would fly in the morning, be seen in the office, fly back in the afternoon, and you don't have to go every 30 days to visit the doctor. That's one of the things that's floating around out there. A lot of people are talking about it, and some of what's going on is not accurate. You know how rumors are.
Oh, yeah.
And my take is, something's going to happen. It may be really good for us. I don't think it's going to be horrible, but we're going to have to wait and see. You know what? I could be wrong.
Well,
it's very unpredictable. You know that the real estate lobby is against telemedicine.
Well, now let me think about that a minute. That kind of does make sense. The less real estate that has to be used for first one thing than another is bad for the real estate lobby. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
All the convoluted shit.
We have an office building. We're in a large medical building, and we have an office in there. We went in there once last year to see a guy that drove in from Louisiana because we didn't have a doctor that could cover Louisiana for us. This guy drove in and was seen in person. That's the only time we went in the office. We're still paying rent, but a lot of these telemedicine practices don't have offices. It's all virtual.
Wow.
So we at least have a brick and mortar office, and there's speculation that may be a requirement somewhere down the road. Who knows?
Yeah.
But, a lot of people get into this, and I think if I'm the government and the real estate lobby is involved, like, well, what do you care about guys being on testosterone and controlled substance? Well, they want a whole bunch of doctors that are renting office space.
Sure they do. Yeah, and it's
So
crystal clear since you mention it like that. It's obvious why the real estate lobby, and those guys got a lot of money, and they can grease a lot of palms.
Yep.
So, how many men across the country do you think right now are on TRT? This is an important question, and the only numbers we came up with was somewhere between 3 and 5 million.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was even more.
Yeah.
We don't know what's going on underground.
Oh, we never have. That's why it's underground.
Yeah. I don't know about you, but when I'm walking around going to Lowe's or Home Depot or whatever, and I do this for a living, so I kind of look at people and I try to guess what they're taking. It's kind of creepy, but you make eye contact with another guy who's in his 60s, and he's got good posture, he's got some bulk to his body, he's not frail, right. And I'm 225 pounds. I don't look like Mr. Universe, but I don't look like a frail old man.
You're not a little old man.
We make eye contact and kind of, I know what you're doing, and I know what you're doing too, and good for you.
Right.
There's a lot of guys out there like that.
Right. There certainly are. I walk around and I'm in stores all the time. I do exactly the same thing. I look at who's in there and I look at their physical presence and their demeanor. And, there are guys that are standing up straight that are obviously my age. And my default assumption with these guys, they're standing up straight. They got some upper body mass. You can kind of tell they've got traps. You see the characteristic male profile. And my assumption is, well, he's doing some test. Good for him. He feels better. He's more effective during the day. His health is better. He sleeps better. He has better relationships with everybody he knows as a result of his normalized testosterone levels.
Let's not make this just about the guys. 40% of our practice is women.
Yes.
And you look at women, and I can tell that they might be 60 years old. You can tell they're older, but woman's got some muscle on her. She's moving pretty well. She looks very good, and we see a lot of starting strength women, and the stories I hear of the effect this has had on their health.
It's profound.
Really, this comes back to health if we really think about it, and almost miraculous things have happened because they started squatting.
Right.
And what they tell me, what it's done for them, they get on hormones, they have some of their youth back, and they're putting on some muscle, and they're losing fat. My God, what's wrong with that?
One of the most profound effects of testosterone on women is their sexual health. It's impossible to overstate the effects that testosterone has on women in terms of their sexual health. It is amazing what it does, and here's another aspect of testosterone replacement therapy that is really underappreciated by most medical professionals, and that is its effect on depression. I've got a lot of friends, a lot of people I know that I have actively encouraged to get onto testosterone replacement therapy, and one of my better friends was talking to me 3 or 4 years ago. He was talking to me about all kind of depressing things, how shitty he felt, and he'd had gastric reflux issues for decades, He was in pain all the time, but he was just absolutely damn near suicidal. He was damn near suicidal. And he came into my office one Saturday afternoon, I guess is when it was. And he said, I need to talk to you. I need to talk to you. And he sat down in the chair and starts going on and on about, this I just can't take this anymore. And it's just, if things get much worse, would you kill me?
Yeah.
And I said, oh my God. All right, here's what's going to happen. You're going to have your ass up here tomorrow evening at 6 o'clock. And I'm going to give you some testosterone out of my prescription. Well, what's that going to do? I said, I don't care what you think it's going to. I'm not going to answer any more questions. I'm not going to discuss this with you. If you ever want to speak to me again, you're going to have your ass up here at 6 o'clock. So he, took me seriously, and he showed up at 6 o'clock, and I put 400 milligrams of testosterone in his ass. And he complained about how the shot hurt. And I said, is there any better indication that your testosterone is low that you're complaining to me about a fucking injection? Get out of here. And I saw him again Wednesday night. He came in Wednesday night. And he walked in the door. And I could tell by the way he was moving. I could tell. And he walked in the door, and he stuck his head in the office, and he said, you were right. 72 hours. And he's been on it ever since. And it's like night and day. And it is so profoundly beneficial for so many guys. Yet, they would rather write Prozac than testosterone. And Mike, I just, this just, I mean, the gap here is so big. And I know you've had the same stories every day over and over and over again. And this is the damnedest thing about testosterone. The primary effects on men are here. And everybody wants to make it out like that testosterone is Viagra. That's not at all the situation.
Yeah. Almost every day. In fact, twice this morning with new guys, I hear the story. They went to their GP. Their levels were low, but they were normal, within the range. You're okay. You don't need testosterone. You sound like you're depressed. I'm going to give you an antidepressant.
Right.
Damn near every day.
Every day.
If I've got 3 guys new that are men in a given day, 3 new ones, one of them's going to have that story.
Right.
There might be a day where I don't have it, but it's extremely common.
It's normal to hear that story.
They just don't want to take an antidepressant. And I'm not saying they're not necessary sometimes, but I just don't see it with these guys. When they get on testosterone, life is good again.
Yeah. And it doesn't take 6 months for life to be good.
No.
And there aren't any side effects like there are from Prozac and any of these other SSRIs. I mean, those things have profound side effects.
Yeah.
And you can't just get off of those. After you've been on them 6 months, you can't just get off of them and be normal the next day.
It's kind of scary. It scared the hell out of me.
There's no circumstances under which I would subject myself to that. There aren't any circumstances. And, it's just, I've talked to a couple of psychiatrists about this, And I say, why do you guys not write testosterone for, a 55-year-old male comes into your office and he's reporting symptoms of depression. And why don't you try the testosterone first? And what I have been told is, well, there's no evidence that testosterone, has a positive effect on depression. I said, well, what do you mean by evidence? That's a terribly important question, isn't it? What do you mean by evidence? The phenomenology is that it always has a positive effect on depression. And the fact that there is not a paper in Lancet to that effect does not mean that testosterone does not have a positive influence on depression. And we just have given up. Doctors have stopped thinking quite some time ago. And I mean, I know you see this as well.
Data driven.
It's just,
according to the data.
Yes. According to the data. And who controls the data? Well, that's an interesting question, isn't it?
Well, just going through the recent health emergency, the public has learned a lot about data and statistics.
The public has learned a lot about the medical services industry over the past 3 years. The medical services industry is just another industry. And there are too many self-serving guys in this position of authority. And I mean, if you're sitting in a doctor's office with a guy on the other side of the desk that says, well, your blood came back and the reference range for testosterone is something like 870 over 210, and you are 220, so you're normal. And you don't need any testosterone. And you say to yourself, well, after all, he is a doctor. I mean, at what point does it become incumbent upon the patient to do the job that his doctor is not doing? That's a terribly important question, isn't it? Because I mean, we're supposed to be good patients. We're supposed to do what we're told, right? And but if you've got some guy telling you to do something on the basis of a 45-second conversation he has with you in his room, and you do it anyway, even though it makes you feel like shit. How many guys are on statins because of that? They feel like shit. They all feel like absolute shit. And they keep taking them anyway because the doctor told them to take the statin. It's just I mean, we've got a terribly dysfunctional relationship between the medical services industry and the general public at this point. It's a terribly dysfunctional relationship. And I don't know what you do.
Well, I think it's changing.
TRT indicates that it's changing. This is one of the better aspects of testosterone replacement therapy, is that I, as a patient, go to you and I say, I have heard that this might help me. This is the way I feel. These are my symptoms. And you check my blood, and those are the signs, right? Signs, symptoms, two different things. All right, you check the signs, I report the symptoms. But I'm the initiator, right? I have agency in this relationship. And I have come to you, and you respond positively, and you write the prescription, and as a result, everything is better. That teaches us things, doesn't it? that teaches patients things that they should have been thinking about before. So.
Yeah, I think the word is out. A lot of testosterone practices are just very thriving and exponentially growing.
Yes.
And I think it's just going to get bigger and bigger.
Well, unless the feds step in and fuck this up. And they could do it. I could see, I mean, here's my conspiratorial side coming out. Can you see the federal government being interested in more men having lower testosterone? I can.
Thought about it. I've thought about it.
I mean, it kind of makes you feel like Alex Jones to think about that, but by the same token, Alex Jones is right sometimes. You know, they want a compliant electorate. They want a compliant bunch of people. And the lower your testosterone, the more compliant you'll be. Now, I don't think that's a misstatement, do you?
Probably not. Hard to imagine.
It is
hard to imagine you compliant.
Well, yeah, it is. You know, some of us are just assholes. You know, despite testosterone status, we're just assholes. And, you know, it just bothers me that would even occur to me, that my government is interested in my hormone status.
Well, I think number one, they're interested in votes.
Yes. Yeah, they're interested in us needing them. Right?
Yeah. Well, there's a toxic masculinity culture out there. There's no doubt about that.
Well, there is the perception of toxic masculinity. I don't know how much of that is just, you know, better homes and gardens.
You're the silent majority for sure.
Yeah.
You know, you and I. You know, but they're more out there. They're more higher profile. We're just going about our lives.
Yeah. I'm not trying to be toxic to anybody that's not fucking with me first, you know. I just got my own deal that I do, and I just want to be left alone. I don't want anything from them. I've never accepted $1 from the government. I've never asked for anything from them except to leave me alone. And I'll leave everybody else alone in response. You know, that's all I want out of my day, is to be left the fuck alone. You know, I find testosterone replacement therapy to have been very, very beneficial to me for a very long time. And some clown in Washington, D.C. has decided that he wants to control that too. He wants to control that aspect of my life too. And I don't appreciate it. You know, the good thing about this is there's probably a lot of people that work for the DEA and that work for the FBI and all these other criminal front groups for the cabal that runs the country, who are themselves taking testosterone. You know,
I don't know why they'd be any different.
I don't either.
Yeah. Except
that they want to keep it all for themselves. Or they don't want to have to deal with us. I don't know. At any rate, you know,
depending on what they're doing, I hope they're on testosterone.
Yeah, you know, their judgment will be better.
Down doors, going into these cartels and some of the dangerous work that they do, I hope they're on testosterone.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, interesting. But something you said earlier is terribly, terribly important, and the boys in D.C. need to keep this in mind. that for which there is a market, there will be a supply. Right?
Yes.
And like it or not, there will be a supply. And if they are thinking very clearly, they can retain a modicum of control over the supply if they deschedule the stuff and just leave us alone and let us go about our business and be healthier and happier and not depressed. You know?
I don't know if common sense enters into this in any way, but
oh God,
there are practices or businesses, if you will, that employ people, that pay taxes, and we have large pharmacy and lab bills that we're paying them, and they're paying taxes, and we're contributing to this economy.
Yes,
and I guess they must think you shut it down, people just find something else to do and continue paying taxes. But I don't know. This has been a positive thing. It's been working. Right now, I wish this wasn't something we were going through and having to deal with. The uncertainty is never comfortable. But we just have to kind of take a wait and see attitude.
Yeah.
I would say if you want to do anything, contact your congressperson and get them involved, and you'll get their attention and see how it plays out.
Well, that's the bottom line. You guys that are watching this podcast want to do something, get on the phone. Call your senator and call your congressman. This is a federal matter. Call your senator, call your congressman, and tell them you are in favor of keeping telemedicine rules the way they are right now. Your testosterone replacement therapy has been beneficial, and you want to continue with that in a legal, constructive manner, and you're all in favor of maintaining the telemedicine regulations with the DEA the way they're being administered currently. And that's probably, if everybody watching this podcast calls their senator and their congressman, that will be very difficult for them to ignore. They actually do respond to contacts like that. They really do. So that would be my advice. Anything else, Mike, you think of?
No, I don't think so. My son and I, we've kind of kicked this around. We haven't sent out a mass mailing or anything to our patients. I think we just don't know enough information to really give them any kind of definitive answers. And of course, now the word is out, and we've had people asking us about it. We have every expectation that we're just going to continue. It may look different in some regard, but we expect we'll be able to deal with it.
Well, I hope so. But I really hope so. You're doing a lot of good for a whole lot of people, and I would hate to see this get all screwed up just for politics.
Yeah.
I really would.
Interesting times, but I'm still positive about it. I do still think this is going to work out. Maybe not as quickly and as easily as you would like or I would like, but I could be way off base too. I just don't really know what to make of it. Whenever you're dealing with these people and there's money involved, a lot of money potentially, hard to tell.
Well, we'll know in the next few months. And,
yes, we will. And even then, depending on what happens after that goes down, you can see Congress get involved in this and see more extensions, and they're going to open up for more comments. That's been done before where these things went on, and you can have an influence. We just have to wait and see.
Yeah. Well, we are going to do that. We are going to do that.
Yeah.
Well, Mike, I appreciate your time.
Yeah, my pleasure.
And it's always good to talk to you about stuff like this. And our guest been Mike Wittmer. He is up in St. Louis at the Wittmer Rejuvenation Clinic. And you can contact him over the internet. What's your website URL?
Wittmer Rejuvenation Clinic. .com, I think.
.com, something like that. Easy enough to find on the web if you want to talk to him and his staff. They're very, very good people, easy to deal with, and it's we've had a very productive relationship with them, and I sincerely hope that it continues.
Yeah.
And we'll just have to wait and see, like Mike says. So thank you guys for joining us today here on Starting Strength Radio, and we will be on top of this. And anything develops, we'll let you know. Thanks for watching today.
Just keep training.